qualifies you for our entry-level auditor membership, the benefits of which include one or perhaps two short stories read aloud sequentially with attendant pauses, inflections, and intonations, with verve and sensibility. These stories, need I remind you, have won literary prizes and have brought Dr. Noyes a deserved share of fame. For instance, the New York Times Book Review praised his first collection of stories for its macabre wit and startling confessions of frailty and delusion. I hasten to note that this refers to the stories, not Monsieur Noyes himself. A highly decorated Wallace Stevens scholar has said, Mr. Noyes is wonderfully good at evoking the moment-to-moment experience of a person under sudden extreme stress, of embarrassment, fear, hysteria, craving. We all get into ridiculous situations that would be, we feel, impossible to describe honestly to anyone else, and very few fiction writers manage to get down inside these situations. Dostoevsky could do it, and Tom Noyes can do it. Okay, and maybe a few others, but not many. The literary journal Image gives us a description apt not only for Senor Noyes' fictional characters, but for us members of his fan club as well. Tom Noyes' people are charming cynics, clever men and women who wear their intelligence lightly. They're as manic and nervy as they are instantly likable. After the story, a self-selected few of you will have the chance to ask Noyes difficult questions about his creative process. You receive bonus points if you can stump him. Intangible benefits of auditor membership include increased literary sensibilities, an eye for quirky details, a heartfelt sympathy for the plight of others. After you exit the reading in 45 minutes or so, you may help yourself to half a bagel slathered in as much flavored cream cheese as your conscience allows. If you are bold, you may approach Thomas for minutes of witty personal conversation. I recommend that you resist the urge to call him Tom Maybe, noting that his last name is an intriguingly ambiguous combination of no and yes. Tom has heard this one before, hundreds of times, ever since the second grade, and is getting quite old, as he once informed me when I thought I was being clever. He will remember your first name for the duration of your chat. Likely he will give you advice about finding greater happiness in your life. All these membership benefits come at no cost to you. For a mere $14.95 plus tax, you can upgrade to our reader level. You will receive a brand new shining copy of Behold Faith and Other Stories, and Dr. Noyes will autograph your book with a unique and clever dedication directed personally to you, so you will have a harder time selling it on eBay. Once you retire to your closet in the evening, you will discover therein stories of, well, I wouldn't want to ruin the surprise. Reader-level fan club members are entitled to a second half of a bagel, if there are any remaining after the crowd has dwindled, but there is generally not enough leftover flavored cream cheese to mask that unmistakable mass-produced bagel flavor, I'm sorry to say. In all seriousness, Tom Noyes is one of my favorite fiction writers, a great shooting guard, and a great friend. If you're ever on the basketball court, you'll want him on your team. If you're ever curled up in your favorite chair, you'll want his name on your book cover. Please welcome Tom Noyes.
Well, that was a really wonderful introduction. Thank you. I am reminded, though, of that saying about I wouldn't want to be a member of any club that would have me or something. Something you might want to keep in mind. You know, don't feel pressured into this club. And I also feel a little pressure myself about the great shooting guard comment, because there's a rumor of basketball later, and now I'm not so sure I want to play. But all right. I did want to thank Pat and Dean Hughes for having this series and for getting me here, and I really appreciate it. It's my first time at BYU, first time in Utah, actually, and I'm amazed by the natural beauty. Patrick's already had me up in a canyon, and it's pretty wonderful here, so I appreciate that. And I appreciate the 60-degree temperature. Right now, I live in Erie, Pennsylvania, and we're getting about a foot of snow according to the weather map, so I appreciate being here. This story that I'm going to read today is called The Wrong Hands. It's about bodybuilding to some degree, which obviously I know a little bit about. Right? That's a joke, so it's because you laugh. It's not from my book. It's from what I hope will be my next book if I can sell the manuscript, which is called "Spooky Action at a Distance and Other Stories." The Wrong Hands. Am I all right? Okay. Before I started working out at Titan's gym 7 months ago, before I met Teddy, I was a mess. On my way out. I'm not exaggerating. Facts are facts. Lives like the one I was living don't tend to last. It was New Year's Day that I clipped the coupon for a free 1-week membership. I spotted it on the last page of the sports section next to an ad for an escort service, and I couldn't ignore it. Despite the haze of my hangover, I saw my situation clearly that morning. Sitting there at my kitchen table, a freshly opened Hair of the Dog beer in front of me, I asked myself point blank, do you want to live or die? And when I couldn't answer myself straight, when I heard myself hem and haw, when I looked up from the paper and out the window just in time to catch a glimpse of my neighbor's bag of bones black cat streaking across my frozen front yard with some bloody, broken creature jammed in its mouth, I knew the nature of my crisis. During that first month of workouts, instead of feeling better, I felt worse, like I was rushing my own ending. I felt deathbed bad, pistol whipped and left in an alley bad. I got sick in the locker room after every workout. Worse than having my face in a public toilet, though, was putting up with a group of eavesdropping muscleheads standing outside the stall, thumbs in their weight belts, taking glee in my plight. This wasn't humor for thinkers. That said, on more than one occasion, my grunting and hacking had the whole locker room in stitches. My first vomit-free workout was Groundhog's Day. I almost lost it in the parking lot. I coughed and gagged, turned some heads, but finally was able to keep myself together. When I walked into the locker room the next day, everyone's clapping my back, calling me buddy, calling me guy, calling me pal, telling me to have a good workout, like I'd passed some kind of initiation. Charity, the girl working the desk, actually takes the cell phone out of her ear to say goodbye to me when I sign out, calls me by my name. Goodbye, Elliot. Like we're chums, like I'm worthwhile, like I exist. This is notable because just a week before, while signing in, I told her how I liked how her tangerine jogging suit matched her tangerine sports drink, and the look she gave me told me to keep walking. It told me that it wasn't as much what I'd said, as much as it was that I'd said anything at all. Teddy McGinnis, one of the chief muscleheads, is a bona fide friend of mine now. I didn't know him well those first couple months at Titans, but once in a while, when none of his buddies was within earshot, he'd offer an encouraging word, tell me to keep the faith. Soon the endorphins will kick in, and it'll be smooth sailing. I'd nod at his broad back as he walked away, but I wasn't totally buying it. I know now, though, he was right. I've become a believer. The word endorphins reminds me of the word dolphins, and that's how I imagine them. Tiny dolphins swimming around in my bloodstream, torpedoing themselves up to break the surface, leaping and turning, unfolding gracefully into perfect dives, then slipping back cleanly into the drink. Scenes like this pop into my head during workouts, especially when I'm doing cardio. Since summer arrived, Teddy and I skip the treadmills and elliptical trainers and head outside to run. Titan isn't far from the lake, just a few blocks, so after lifting we run this 3-mile loop that takes us down to the water to Dobbins Landing and the Bicentennial Tower, along a stretch of the bike trail that follows the shoreline, and then back up the hill, back to the gym. On Saturdays, when we have more time, we sometimes drive over to Presque Isle to run on the beach. You tell people you live in Erie, Pennsylvania, and unless they're fishermen, they moan for you. or tilt their heads sympathetically, or make some comment about the mistake by the lake, which they don't have their facts right is actually Cleveland, or about lake effect snow, which it's true buries us 6 months out of the year, but you know you could change their minds by showing them the peninsula in summer. At any rate, running in sand makes for a great workout, and it's easy on the ankles and shins. Time passes faster too. You forget to check your watch sometimes and end up running longer than you planned. Even though Teddy and I sometimes talk while we run, it happens a lot that I'll start watching the water. Maybe I'll see a gull dive or a fish jump, and my mind will make that leap to dolphins, to endorphins, and I'll start feeling them. Little pulses and ripples in my chest, hamstrings and glutes, even in my groin. Teddy does cardio because he knows he has to, not because he likes to. He's not a natural runner. He'd much rather pump iron. The guy's huge. When we're running on the beach, you should see the heads turn. At the club, too. His pecs enter our room a good full second before the rest of them. His shoulders, his lats, his delts. He has to angle himself down hallways. The drinking fountain just outside the weight room is set back in this narrow enclave, essentially off limits to Teddy because he can't fit. So I take his bottle and fill it for him when I fill mine. Otherwise, he'd have to hike back to the locker room or buy designer water out of the vending machine at $1.50 a pop. All that Teddy's done for me, I'm more than glad to help him out. Teddy's only in his late 20s. I have almost a full decade on him. But I can't help seeing him as a kind of role model, not just in terms of fitness. He's got something else I've never had, but always wanted. And I think hanging around him is helping me understand how to get it. It's hard to explain what this it is. I know when I see it in Teddy, though, and know it when I don't see it in myself. When he spots for me on bench, for instance, I'll be on my last rep, seeing nothing but golden red flashes and feeling nothing but fire as I try to push it out, and Teddy won't lift a finger until I'm stuck and losing ground. "Up to the sky, Elliot, up to the sky, from your chest, breathe," he yells at me. But flat on my back and straining, I feel like I can't breathe, and my arms start to fail, and the bar starts to sink, and spit's flying out the sides of my mouth, and my nose is running, and I want to surrender. I want to live to fight another day. I'm empty. Nothing left. At this point, Teddy reaches under the bar and steadies it, stops it from falling, but he doesn't let me quit. "Come on, sister," he growls. "Work it out. Show me something." And he won't budge that bar until he feels me pushing on it. The first few times I got stuck like that on the bench, I afterwards felt angry, like I'd been bullied and needed to stand up for myself. I was too spent to act, though, and I'm glad because now I understand what Teddy was up to, what he's after. My own good. We're a team now, though sometimes in the middle of things it might not feel like this. Teddy floats around the area schools as a substitute gym teacher these days, but he's considering a career change, thinking toward becoming a personal trainer. He sees me as a project, I think, a guinea pig. At any rate, I'm more than willing. Feel lucky things have turned out like they have with him and me. It wasn't long after getting to know each other that Teddy had me on a schedule. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are chest, arms, and abs. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays are backs and legs. Each of these days, on top of the lifting, we do 45 minutes of cardio, and he's got me eating right. Simple carbs, fatty meats, and dairy are out. Caffeine, too. I'll stop for a drive-through cappuccino once in a while, but I rarely get the whole cup down before guilt consumes me and I feel led to dump the rest out the window. Water, decaf green tea, and non-fat soy milk are my beverage options now. I'm a machine is what Teddy's taught me. Garbage in, garbage out. You can't pollute the endorphins' habitat. Brown rice, soy cheese, and boiled eggs taste better if you think about your body when you eat them. Beer, potato chips, and ice cream taste worse. I'm not saying it's not hard sometimes. You should have seen how I ate prior to meeting Teddy. And it's true that the worst habits are the hardest to break, but it's getting easier. To help me stay on the straight and narrow, Teddy makes me a copy of his weekly menu. This is a big help. Say I come home from the gym one evening with pizza on my mind. Maybe some of the other guys on my shift ordered one in for lunch. I've been punching the clock over at GE since I graduated high school. Or I heard a Papa John's or a Pizza Hut ad on the radio that I can't get out of my mind, or I found coupons in my mailbox. It's amazing the power of suggestion. Anyway, part of the reason I'm able to resist is because I know Teddy is across town in his kitchen preparing exactly what I should be preparing in mine. What I'm saying is we're there for each other even when we're not actually there. Like Teddy, I live alone, so this helps cut down on temptation. I don't have to watch someone across the table from me gorging on fettuccine Alfredo as I'm eating my baby spinach and tuna. But on occasion, when I eat dinner at a restaurant or get together with extended family on holidays, what I feel toward the other diners isn't jealousy, it's pity. It's like I have x-ray vision and can see their arteries clogging, their hearts straining, their poor endorphins floating on the surface, belly up, fins limp, little lifeless X's where their eyes should be. Sundays, Teddy and I make ourselves stay away from Titans even though it's where we want to be. Muscles need recovery time. This summer we've been spending our off day together. It's the next best thing to being at the gym. I have a grill, and I have cable, and I have air conditioning, so we meet at my house. The neighbor's cat, that same hunter who crossed my front lawn New Year's Day with his jaws full of fresh game, appears as soon as I fire up the grill, like he's been waiting all week for us to get the show on the road. And Teddy and I toss him chunks of the salmon or chicken breast we're eating before we head inside to watch a ball game, go over the menu for the week, and once in a while even split a light beer if Teddy's feeling like we've been exceptionally good. Light beer is bad beer, let's face it, but on those Sundays it tastes almost okay. This is a page break. When I pull into Titan's parking lot, even if there are closer spaces available, I instinctively head back to the northeast corner to find a spot. I don't know why, but we muscleheads gravitate there, just like all the Pilates ladies gravitate up front near the doors, like all the racquetball players gravitate to the side lot by the dumpster. No one decreed the segregation, it just happened. So I know the rides of most of the regular weightlifters, Phil's F-150, Keenan's cold weather Subaru and his warm weather Harley, and the guy Keenan's always with, the guy who always wears the headband, his olds. Teddy drives this tiny Honda. He says getting in and out of it keeps him flexible. And Preacher's Astro van. Preacher and his wife have kids out the wazoo. I peeked in the window of the van once and counted 4 booster seats. For somebody like Patrick, that's no big deal. All right. Preacher is called Preacher at the club, not because he's a minister, but because he does set after set of preacher curls. He can't get enough of them. Kind of an old-fashioned gimmicky exercise. Teddy and I don't do them. They look painful. When I watch Preacher do them, I can't help but cringe. You rest your arms on this podium, like a preacher delivering a sermon, I guess, but the podium slopes away from you instead of toward you. The idea is that your arms can't swing, you can't cheat, so you're able to zero in on your biceps, forearms, and wrists. Preacher's not that big of a guy. Even I've got broader shoulders, a more developed chest, but he's got these Popeye arms exploding out of his shirt sleeves. Because he doesn't do enough core work, though, his arms look like they don't belong to him, like he's borrowing them from someone else. An NFL lineman, maybe, or one of those WWF monsters. Teddy asks him, "You got a permit for those guns, Preacher?" And it makes everyone in the weight room who hears it, Preacher included, happy. I understand what Preacher was thinking in wanting to tag along with Teddy and me. I'm not cold-hearted, I'm not mean, I'm not incapable of sympathy. I was fine with Preacher shooting the bull with us in the locker room in the sauna, was even fine with him starting to work in with us on bench. I admit to feeling put upon, though, when he showed up unannounced at my house one Sunday, evidently inviting himself to lunch. He comes bearing a half-dozen beef patties, but they're not ground sirloin, they're ground chuck. As if Teddy and I would ever eat that garbage. And along with the burgers, he's toting a case of Railbender Ale, a local brew that previously was one of my favorites, but now, of course, is a problem. Again, it's not that I don't get where the guy's coming from. His house is swamped with kids, and his wife isn't much of a fan of his anymore. These are his words. So I understand his desire to get in on the good thing Teddy and I have going, and maybe, theoretically, a third wheel would be all right if it were the right third wheel, but Preacher's not the right third wheel. He's a guy who talks too much, a conversation bully. He says some compelling things now and then. The guy's obviously bright, his interests are broad, but you're exhausted after listening to him. Every exchange is a wrestling match. Despite it being my endorphins' day of rest, as Preacher sinks into my couch and starts talking, they commence popping and flipping like I'm running uphill. Teddy and I are trying to hear the ball game we have on, but Preacher's revved. He's using up all the air in the room. It takes him 2 full innings to explain the dynamics of static electricity after we see this commercial for a no-batteries flashlight. When you need it, you just shake it and switch it on. The Excalibur. The voiceover on the commercial claims it lasts forever. I don't know if I buy forever, but I admit the flashlight's pretty neat. Preacher's explanation, though, is taking the fun out of it, and I'm surprised by my desire to have the Excalibur in my hand at this very moment so I can cold cock him behind the ear with it. When I get up to go to the bathroom, I don't even think Preacher notices. He's talking to himself more than to Teddy or me. When I returned to the living room, needing a break from Preacher, I took my time in the bathroom, actually washed my hands as long as you're supposed to, a full 30 seconds, and brushed my teeth, even flossed a little. Preacher's gone. I look out the window and see his van pulling out of the driveway. I sit down and wait for Teddy to fill me in, but it doesn't appear he's going to on his own, so I ask, "Where's Preacher going?" "Emergency room," Teddy says. "After that, home. If you have a family, that's where your Sunday afternoon should be spent." "Emergency room?" I say. He hurt his arm," Teddy says. "I was flipping around during commercial, and on ESPN Classic they've got arm wrestling. Of course, Preacher starts in like he's an authority, says it's not strength as much as quickness, starts crowing about his quick wrists, about what a great high school baseball player he was, how as a boy he sprayed line drives all over northwestern Pennsylvania with his superhumanly quick hands. And then he starts hinting around like he'd like to try me." "What was he thinking?" I ask. "He wasn't," Teddy says, "obviously." "So you broke his arm?" "Broke? I don't know, something popped." I didn't hear him yell. "He's tough," Teddy says, "I'll give him that. Didn't whine at all, just made faces, like when he's on his last few reps doing those curls of his. You ever watch him? Looks like he's filling his diaper." "Should we follow him to the hospital?" He said no, said he'd be fine. I think he was embarrassed. I think showing up at the hospital would be like rubbing it in, you know? "Wow," I said, "poor Preacher." "Yeah, right, poor Preacher," Teddy says. "I was hoping he'd stick around all day." When I next see Preacher a couple weeks later at Titans, his right arm's in a sling. He's still doing dumbbell curls with his left, though. "Preach," I say. "You should have waited for me. I'm probably more your speed." "Waited for you," Preacher says without looking at me. He has his eyes on Teddy, who's at the squat bar across the room. Preacher can see Teddy's face in the mirror. I don't know if Teddy's watching us or not. "I'm saying you should have arm wrestled me instead of Teddy." "Arm wrestled," Preacher says. And then he turns to me and grins. "Right, arm wrestle." If he had something more to say, he didn't say it. A talker like Preacher, I have to assume if there was more, he would have come out with it. Look it, guys tangle. That's how guys are wired. Big guys, fit guys especially. Guys start feeling good about themselves, and then what happens? Guys want to feel even better. You get 2 big, fit guys who want to feel better at the same time in the same room, maybe a problem arises. But afterwards it blows over. Guys forget about it. It stays a problem only if guys let it stay a problem. My living situation is I rent half a house. I spent years in a beehive-like apartment complex, in beehive-like apartment complexes like the one Teddy lives in, and told myself I didn't mind. But now that I'm living in a real house, I don't think I could ever go back. The only drawback to where I am now is neighbors. Neighbors in and of themselves aren't problematic, of course, but a new neighbor who shares your property, who in fact lives in the other half of your house and doesn't pull his weight, is a problem. A neighbor who's supposed to split lawn mowing and snow shoveling duties with you, but instead screws around all night and sleeps all day, is a problem. This chore splitting arrangement isn't informal or voluntary, it's in black and white in the lease. And your old neighbor understood it just fine, but this new neighbor, this Blake, he doesn't get it. Not only that, he doesn't even say sorry, doesn't even say thank you. He takes for granted the clear driveway, the neat lawn. Maybe he thinks he's too good for these kinds of chores. Maybe he's just lazy. Or maybe he doesn't even notice whether the grass is tall or short, whether the driveway's clear or buried, because he's oblivious. La La Land, this Blake. He wears his dyed black hair in a long ponytail, and he paints his fingernails black, and sometimes he wears black lipstick,
and he sports the kind of earrings that fit inside and stretch out your earlobes. And no matter the season, no matter the weather, he wears this black leather jacket with black turtleneck and black jeans. It's hard to say what this Blake's deal is. Even though we're not allowed to have pets, I'm pretty sure it's his black cat who hangs around the grill with Teddy and me. He used to hang around with us anyway. There's been no sign of the cat for a couple weeks. I fear for it. But do I squeal on this Blake to the landlord? Do I say to this Blake, "What are you supposed to be, you freak? Are you a male witch? Are you in a punk band? Are you a Satan worshiper? What did you do to that poor cat that you're not even allowed to have in the first place?" No, I don't squeal, and I don't direct toward him any of these admittedly nosy, judgmental questions. What I do is, if I get his mail by accident, I put it in his mailbox. If he parks sloppily in the driveway so there's not enough room for my car, I park on the street. If he's listening to TV or music too loudly, I put on earphones or I go for a walk. The landlord's take on the lawn mowing and snow shoveling situation is that it isn't his problem. The lease says what it says. It's this Blake's and my responsibility to work it out. Working out details takes time and effort, though. Probably more time and effort than just being the bigger man and shoveling the snow, cutting the grass. This summer I've been mowing Sunday mornings before Teddy comes over. I'm showered and have the grill hot by the time he shows up, and there's that mown grass smell that helps me relax. And I admit, because this Blake sleeps most of the day, I take some satisfaction in revving up the mower at 9 or 10 in the morning. This past Sunday, though, a problem arises. When I pull the mower's starter cord, it doesn't start. Worse, the cord doesn't recoil. So I start tinkering around with it, thinking it should be an easy fix. I start loosening bolts, and unscrewing screws, and removing plates and covers and disconnecting connections, and before I know it, 2 hours have passed, and I have a couple blood blisters on my fingers, and the status of the lawnmower is that it's more apart now than together, more broken than fixed, and I've got no mind for small engines, and Teddy's scheduled to arrive within the half hour, and I haven't even cleaned or fired up the grill. What happens then is I get angry. The anger is at once rational and irrational, both righteous and unrighteous. If this Blake took his turn with lawn maintenance like he was supposed to, I probably still would have ended up with a busted mower somewhere along the line, but I'm convinced the point is more far-reaching than just here and now. The point is big picture, last straw. The point is fair is fair. The point is justice for all. I ring this Blake's front doorbell 3 times before he answers. The guy's fresh from the coffin. His pupils are dime-sized and the whites are pencil eraser pink. He's got a fresh tattoo on his neck that wasn't there the last time I saw him. A row of stitches oozing blood. It's not that it looks real, it's that it looks worse than real. "Hey," I say to this Blake, "sorry to wake you, but my mower's out of commission. You need to take on the grass cutting this week. Okay? Maybe one of your friends has a mower? If not, there's this rental place downtown behind the stadium where you can get one for a couple hours. Anyway, from now on we alternate weeks like we're supposed to. Okay? The past is the past, but starting today, okay?" It's a sword that flashes out from behind this Blake's back as he jumps onto the porch, forcing me onto the steps. At first he's just holding it in front of him vertically, but then he starts reciting gibberish in this deep husky growl. It's not English he's speaking unless it's English backwards, like backwards masking, like a spell of some sort, like he's looking to do me harm, not only physically but spiritually. And the sword starts spinning faster and faster. What comes to mind is one of those little prop planes, those connecting flight planes, the ones that force you to ask yourself why you didn't go Greyhound. You've got a wing seat. Everyone has a wing seat on these planes. And during takeoff, when the propellers start up, you watch how the 3 blades become one, and then eventually that one blade moves so fast that it's barely there, it blurs into almost nothing. That's this Blake and his sword. This Blake's handled this sword before. He's practiced. He starts toward me slowly, little baby steps, and I run backwards as fast as I can toward the garage, but somehow he's gaining on me. And for a brief moment we're close enough that I can feel the breeze of the whirring blade, can smell this Blake's coffin breath. When we hit the driveway, though, this Blake stops his pursuit, stills his sword above his head, directs more mumbo-jumbo words my way. His lids are fluttering so I can see that his eyeballs have rolled back in his head like he's staring at his own brain, and then turns and sprints back through his door back inside his hole. My endorphins are raging, like they want out, like the sea they're swimming in is boiling. I'm slumped against the wall of the garage, waiting for them to calm down, trying to get my heart rate under control when Teddy pulls up. He unfolds himself out of his car and rushes over to me. "You okay, Elliot?" I nod and push myself away from the wall, make myself stand straight. "Neighborly discord," I say. "What happened to your leg?" Teddy asks, pointing to my thigh. When I look down, I see that this Blake has sliced my shorts only a couple inches to the left of my crotch. My skin's unbroken, there's no blood, but still, seeing it, it's a fight to stay standing. "That weird dude who lives next to you?" Teddy asks. And he's halfway to this Blake's door before I even nod. When Teddy rings the bell, the door cracks open and he pushes it in the rest of the way, and then he's inside. I follow. The whole way to this Blake's door, I'm telling myself to hurry up and get in there, and I'm telling myself to turn around and run. Once inside, I see the sword on the floor, and I see that Teddy has this Blake pinned against a floor-to-ceiling bookcase. Teddy has this Blake by the neck with one hand, and his other hand is cocked back, balled into a fist. After Teddy's fist lands on this Blake's chin, Teddy lets him go, and this Blake falls to his knees. Then Teddy hits this Blake in the ear with an open hand slap that I imagine this Blake will never stop hearing. Teddy takes a couple steps back then, and I take a couple steps up, so we're standing next to each other when this Blake pulls himself to his feet. When he raises his head and sees us, it's like he's surprised we're there. And what he says, he has to say 3 times before we understand him. "Sorry," he says. "Please don't report me." "For the drugs you're obviously on? For assault with a deadly weapon? For being a worthless piece of trash?" Teddy says. "Be more specific." "I just got out of prison this year," this Blake says. He shuffles across the room to the couch and collapses. He's got one hand on his chin, the other on his ear. "This would screw me big time. I'm sorry, please." "It's not up to me, friend," Teddy says, and then nods towards me. "That's the guy you need to apologize to." "Elliot, right?" this Blake says to me. "Whatever I did to you, I'm sorry." "You don't know what you did," I say, pointing to my crotch. When I'm using, I have these episodes. I wig. "You picked a bad time to come to my door." "So it's my fault," I say. "No, like I said, I'm sorry." This Blake takes his hand away from his ear, then cringes and puts it back. "I'm scared here, okay? I've been doing all right until just recently." "So we do you a favor by keeping quiet, and then a week goes by, and we read in the paper that you've carved somebody up with your sword," Teddy says, walking over to it and picking it up. "Saber," this Blake says. "Not a sword, a saber." "Take it. It's worth thousands. What do I want with it?" "Your call," Teddy says to me, handing me the saber. "I really am sorry," this Blake says, and he starts weeping. He doesn't try to hide it. He's out in the open with this weeping. A big vein pops up on his neck, bulging blue with his weeping. "I don't want to see or hear you ever again," I say. I'm slapping my palm with the flat blade of the saber as I speak. "I want you to cut the grass for the rest of the summer, but I don't want to see or hear you do it. I just want short grass. When your lease is up, I want you gone, but I don't want to see or hear you moving out. I just want an empty house." "Sure," this Blake says. "It'll be tricky what you're asking, but that's my problem. Where to get a mower, when to mow, when to move, where to move. Figuring out those details, though, that's my problem." "Let's go," Teddy says to me, and we both turn toward the door. "You know, when I got out of prison last year, I was happy, of course, but you know what made me sad?" this Blake says. "Please," he says, "before you go. You know the first thing on the outside that depressed me? Riding away from the prison in my ex's car, I saw this sign on the highway. Correction facility area. Do not pick up hitchhikers." That really bummed me out, right? To think I'm considered that dangerous enough to require signs. I'm thinking about that now because I'm feeling that same type sadness. like I've taken a step backwards. Are you sure I went after you with the saber? When this Blake is finished, I continue toward the door, but Teddy spins and flies back at this Blake. This Blake sticks up one of his legs to protect himself, but Teddy sweeps it aside and lands 2 short, quick shots on the crown of this Blake's head, like he's pounding a stake into the ground. He told you didn't want to ever hear you again, Teddy screams at this Blake. You didn't hear him say that? You're off to a bad start. And then suddenly Teddy shoots past me out the door, and I follow, and then we're both standing in the sunshine in the middle of the uncut front lawn, and Teddy's massaging his knuckles, asking me, am I going to fire up the grill or what? We go back around to the patio, and I don't know what to do with the saber, so I lean it next to the grill while I turn on the gas and strike the match. We both stand there watching the flames for a while, waiting for our breathing to even out. I'm telling myself we did what we had to do, that in a big picture sense, we did this Blake a favor, maybe gave him the wake-up call he needed. And I'm about to say out loud something along these lines when Teddy steps in front of me to close the lid of the grill and tells me to go ahead and shower, that he'll start lunch. A few minutes later, when I look out my bedroom window as I'm getting dressed, I see he's using the saber to flip our tuna steaks. After I throw together a quick salad and Teddy brings the steaks in, we sit down in the living room with our food and switch on the TV, only to discover that the Pirates game, our first choice, is getting rained out. So we turn to the Indians game, where we find out Cleveland isn't going to get in its game either. Somehow Erie, smack dab between these two cities, is enjoying sunshine while all around the heavens are opening. We switch over to the Weather Channel, and sure enough, we see on the map that we're the only pocket of clear skies for hundreds of miles. It's raining not only south and west of us, but also east of us in Buffalo, north of us in Canada. Like Erie's being singled out, smiled down upon, like we're being rewarded, like everyone else is being punished. Teddy and I settle on a movie neither of us recognize. We join it in progress, and it looks like we've missed some important stuff, so it's hard to figure out who's doing what and why. Even after we're done eating, though, neither of us makes a move to switch the channel, so it looks like we're committed to it. After a while, I say something about one of the guys in the movie. I've never seen this actor before. I have a feeling he's not a real actor, that he's in this movie only because of his body, which is amazing. He's shirtless in every scene for good reason. The guy's sculpted out of granite. Must be tough to find the time and energy to work out when you're always on the lam, I say. When Teddy doesn't answer, I look over to see he's fallen asleep. He's never done this before. I'm not sure why, but it unnerves me for some reason, him sleeping on my couch. I pull myself out of the recliner and head out back to the patio to clean the grill. The saber's still out there, lying on the cement, and I think how stupid it was for Teddy and me to forget it out here. This Blake could have stolen it back. Anyone could have stolen it. Even if it's not worth the money this Blake says it's worth, a saber isn't something you want falling into the wrong hands. I pick it up and turn to look at myself in the glass of the patio door. I strike a two-handed samurai pose and then get into a fencing pose, like I'm Zorro or a buccaneer. I'm not yet as lean and defined as Teddy and I want me to be, but I'm making progress. I'm getting there. This Blake, his half of the house doesn't have a back patio like mine. The lawn runs right up to the door of his laundry room. My back's to it when I hear it fly open. When I turn, expecting to see this Blake, I instead see a woman, crying, holding her face with one hand. I don't know where this girl came from. If she was somewhere deep in this Blake's lair when Teddy and I were visiting with him, or if she's arrived on the scene since, and I don't think I recognize her. This Blake gets plenty of visitors, but I always hear them arrive post-dusk and leave pre-dawn. The way she slams shut this Blake's back door, though, suggests she's a regular. The way she slams shut this Blake's back door suggests that it's a door she's slammed shut before. A door she's trying to convince herself she's slamming shut for the last time. And when she sees me, she screams at me to mind my own business, as if I'm not standing on my own patio. She passes directly in front of me to get around the house to the street, so I can see what she's got is a nasty shiner, what's going to turn into one anyway. And when I ask if she's going to be okay, instead of answering me, she thrusts her head over her shoulder and says, "That's Blake's sword, not yours." It's It's not a sword I call after her. What I should do, of course, is follow her, offer her what she needs. An ice pack, a ride, my phone, a glass of water, advice. What I do instead, though, is turn the other way, start toward this Blake's door. As I sheathe the saber in the waistband of my shorts, I feel my endorphins, whole schools of them, swimming in sync, circling and swarming, like I imagine piranha must circle and swarm. When I get to this Blake's door, I open it and walk right in. I don't knock. Piranha don't knock. I'm treading through this Blake's laundry room with purpose, with what I imagine purpose must feel like. When this Blake's cat, the one I'd come close to writing off, tears out from behind the washing machine, runs over my feet, ricochets off a pile of dirty sheets and beelines for the hallway. This spooks me frozen, but when I hear this Blake scream from somewhere deep in the house, "That you, babe? You back for more?" I know that's my cue, and my feet are moving again, even before I decide to move them, and the saber's out of my shorts, leading the way toward this Blake's voice before I can even ask myself what the plan is. Like autopilot, like muscle memory. The thinking part of me might as well be napping through rainouts alongside Teddy. From here on in, for better or worse, out of my hands. And that's the end of the story. Sure. Yeah, I'd be glad to.
Questions?
Yeah.
How much do you rely on your own interaction with people you know, grew up with, in order to
Yeah, Pat's Teddy. No. In this story, almost none at all, really. You know, in a lot of my stories, though, I certainly do. You know, no, it's an interesting question when it comes to this story. In a lot of my work, I can't help but associate some of the characters with real life people, you know, who have come in and out of my life. But yeah, I have to admit, with this story, I don't know, you know, these might be a little bit more typed characters, you know, in some ways. But yeah, good question. Yeah.
This story was in first person. Did you use that a lot?
I'm trying to think about, you know, I think it's about 50-50 with me in terms of my stories. I'm writing a novel right now that's in third person, but what's that? No, not really. I would say recently I've been writing more and more stories in first person, but I think with my manuscript that this comes from, I think it's about half and half with third and first. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, and we'll have a reception out to Friday.
And then the other team that I was part of at first went to a place called La Paz, and you'll see a couple pictures of La Paz. So this is the old South Pole station, that dome. That's me at the South Pole. It was very cold, and we had to wear, you can sort of see the gear that we're wearing. It's about 40 pounds of stuff that you wore. And one of the team members, Barb Cohen, who's a terrific up-and-coming scientist, is about this tall. I mean, she just really struggled with all this clothing, but she was the only person capable of basically just bending over to get into the tents. The rest of us had to crawl in. So she had an advantage on us. The wind chill that day was about minus 45, and it was pretty intense. This is the inside of where we stayed. I'm getting some pictures I actually meant to edit out. These are taken through my ski goggles. As we're flying from the South Pole, we went on sort of staging flights. You saw those planes earlier in the slideshow. Those were Twin Otters that are ski equipped, and we flew from the South Pole out to La Paz, where I spent 2 weeks, and then I swapped out with another person and joined the group that was along the mountain range that I told you about. And so I had 5 weeks that that should have been rotated. Anyway, this is at La Paz. That's a meteorite? Not terribly dramatic, is it? It's just this little thing, but it was incredibly cool, and they found one right after they got out of the plane and put the ice pick there to mark it for later collection, and as soon as I got out, they were talking about it, and I sort of crawled up to it. I was like, I found a meteorite! 4.5 billion years old. Kind of cool. There we go. That's a good picture. That gives you a sense. That gives you a sense of what the La Paz ice fields were like. It was wide open. And the only rock at La Paz was meteorite rock. Okay, that was the only stuff that had surfaced. It was like I don't know, like outside of Lubbock. You know, it was really flat, and you can see where these are pilots. The guy in the yellow jacket is Ralph Harvey, our fearless leader. The tents, you can see those little tents in the background. They're standing on blue ice. The blue ice is where the meteorites are surfacing, and then this snowy stuff is called firn, F-I-R-N, and that's just sort of patchy snow that's on its way to becoming ice. So I'll just show you a few more pictures. That's a good shot. That's one of our colleagues, Andrew Dombard, happy that he got Pringles. They dropped fuel cans prior to our getting there, and so we had to go out and get the fuel. Just a couple more pictures. I love this picture. That's Andrew walking back after having chipped ice for drinking water. We would go out and chip ice and bring it back and melt it. And that picture gives you at least some sense of the austerity of that landscape. It was really strange, to say. It was really a very strange place. There's a flag marking where a meteorite was found. We would go out on snowmobiles in a V-shaped formation, look for these things. If we found one, we'd stop, we'd wave. We didn't have radios, so we just waved, and then we would converge, get the collection kit out, and use as sanitary as we could get methods of collecting them. Sometimes we drip snot on them. That was written down in the field notes as like a field incident or something like that. It couldn't be helped. There was also roadkill where you would run over meteorite. Ralph did that. I didn't do it, fortunately. And then we'd take a GPS. We'd write the information on the flagpoles, bamboo, and then if we needed to go back out and redo the GPS, we had that, and then we'd go back and collect the flags again for another round. Some of these pictures are a little rough. There's the snowmobile. That's right. That's a break during the traverse, and you can see one little bit in the background, a little bit of a rise. There was a little bit of topography there at La Paz called pinnacles that they're not quite sure how they found. And I'll just stop here because this gives you an up-close look at a meteorite. They're not that impressive looking, are they? One of the challenges I've had in writing this book is trying to cope with the aesthetics of how sort of boring they look. But it turned out that in my notes, without my really trying, I was describing meteorites in food metaphors, like hunks of Mexican chocolate, or this one looked to me like a piece of dried out brown meatloaf, that had been on the counter for a few days. This meteorite actually, for all of its sort of dull appearance, has some sharp edges, so you can sort of see those sharp edges. This is a palisite. This is one of the rarest meteorites known. And one of the people that I write about in the book found palisites on her farm in Kansas in the 1890s and finally convinced scientists to come down and look at them. She cleared her mortgage in about one day. So they're extremely valuable. So I'll just end. I know we have to pause for time, and thank you all for coming, and have a good day.
Thanks, Chris, so much. We have a little reception. We have some food out there. Come out and meet Chris and have a chance to talk to him.
I have copies of acetone. Yeah.